and sports dentistry doesn't come out regularly as a field where we find too many people and specialized people in this.
Well, really, it was my passion for sports. So
There's a lot of appetite for clear aligner to look good, right? And you would be working with all the athletes of all the nations, like it's not because it's part of the organization committee.
Yeah, I work with all the nations. So
welcome, Dr. John Haughey, to the Digital Dentistry Deep Dive. We are thrilled to have you on this podcast today. So, just as a brief introduction, and I know I may not be doing all the justice, but I'll take a shot to introduce you because you have a very good CV out there. So, you are a seasoned expert based in Dublin with a truly unique blend of expertise in cosmetic, sports, and neuromuscular dentistry. You have dedicated your practice to helping patients achieve stunning functional smiles with extensive experience in everything from full mouth makeovers and smile design to TMJ therapy and clear aligner treatments. But what sets you apart is your passion for sports dentistry, a field where you have made notable impact both in Ireland and internationally. Your pioneering work includes developing neuromuscular mouthpieces designed to enhance athletic performance by optimizing jaw alignment, posture, and breathing. You've had the honor of working with both amateur and professional athletes across various sports, and you have supported at major events such as Olympics and Commonwealth Games, also including the European Boxing Championships. You're also an educator and advocate, and you collaborate with various organizations such as the Gaelic Players Association and the Irish Horse Racing, to name few. Dr. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me.
So, Dr. John, I know that was an extensive CV, but I'll take you back to the starting kind of phases. So, I think usually, when we do this podcast, we talk to a lot of people in manufacturing or the dental clinical side of things within dentistry, and sports dentistry doesn't come out regularly as a field where we find too many people and specialized people in this. So what made you follow sports dentistry as a specific expertise or field in where you can have expertise on?
Well, really, it was my passion for sports. So I've always been very passionate about sports, either playing it or constantly watching it. So when I was finished university, I spent some time in the north of England, and then I was unsure of where I was going to settle or what sort of dentistry role I wanted to do. So I took a break and worked in Australia for a year. And this was back in 2009. And during that time, there's quite a lot of press about a performance mouthguard called Pure Power Mouthguard. And then the New Orleans Saints had worn this mouthguard when they won the Super Bowl that year. So it was getting a lot of press. And that started to raise my interest about how there was this possibility of being able to combine my passion for sports with my career in dentistry. When I returned from Australia, I started working more local to where I was brought up, and I went and underdid Peter Fine's sports dentistry course at UCL, and that opened up a lot of topics in dentistry which could be applied specifically to the athlete and really expanded my knowledge in sports dentistry. I think I was very fortunate as well with the timing of it. I did it a couple of years before the London Olympics, and there's quite a lot of excitement about the London Olympics at the time, and they were needing dentists to support them with providing medical support to the athletes during the Olympics. And I had the pleasure of working at the London Olympics, and really my sports dentistry then just grew from there. So it started off at really being piqued by the interest that was being shown around a performance mouthguard, but then I learned a lot more to do with sports dentistry, and then got the experience from the Olympics, and really have just developed as much as I could from that experience.
Brilliant. And did you represent the Irish contingent or the English side of the Olympics, or was it generic from the Olympic Association?
Yeah, so it's with the Olympics, you have your Olympic organising committee, and they have to provide a wide range of support. And when it comes to medical support, there's usually a polyclinic in the athletes' village, and also they would have medical teams based at each sporting venue. So it's quite unique. The Olympics, where it's a multi-sport event, so you may have some countries that have athletes based, even though they're all sort of based in the athletes' village where they stay. When they're actually competing, they could be based over a number of venues, and their medical team could be pretty well stretched. So they may not have support to be able to support all their athletes at all these different venues. So therefore, the organising committee has a responsibility there to provide that support. So that was my role. I was with the organising committee, where I was based at the Axel Arena, where there was a number of sports, but particularly we were based at the boxing event. So we would provided sports dentistry support if it was needed, as part of the athlete medical team that the organising committee would have had in place there to support any athletes that there might have been a need for.
Great, great. And you would be working with all the athletes of all the nations, like it's not
Yeah,
because
so
it's part of the
you work
organization committee.
specifically,
Yeah,
yeah, work with all the nations. So with events like that. So I've had a number of events. So I've probably worked at seven major competitions at the moment, or international competitions, and six of them would have been in that role. So I had the pleasure as well, not over in, as well, shortly after London, we had the Glasgow Commonwealth Games, which was also a great event. And then the year after that, we had the very first European Olympics, which was based in Azerbaijan. Again, they were all roles through the organising committee. Now, what happened in boxing shortly after London, that was in the amateur boxing, they got rid of the head guards. And what this did was this increased the number of lacerations that boxers were undergoing. So there was a large rise in lacerations to the face, mainly from head clashes in amateur boxing. Amateur boxing is quite unique compared to professional boxing, where in professional boxing, if you get a cut, you maybe have 2 or 3 months before your next bout, and you have that time for your body to heal. But with amateur boxing, with the competition, you've maybe 3 or 4 fights that week if you keep on winning. So that allowed me to help provide support with that as well. So I had the pleasure then of traveling with the Irish team for the European boxing championships that same year. It was out in Bulgaria, and Ireland got 2 goals. Mike Conlon and Joe Ward both got goals. So that was a great experience as well, to be able to travel as part of the support for that team. But most of
that's
the roles with the competitions has been with the organising committee, that way. So we do support locally through the clinic. We would support athletes that are based locally, but when it comes to the major competitions, it's mainly supporting the organising committee, and providing that support role for them.
That's brilliant. And what's the ratio, the proportion of a dentist? Like, I think it would be a small team. It's not like physios or other kind of contingent that's part of the association. Like, what's the ratio? And are the dentists stretched because there's so many athletes from so many nations, like, who may need help?
Yeah, so it's unique because you're only actually supporting for that 10 days or 2 weeks of the competition, when you're at these competitions. So it's really, a lot of it's down to preventing any sort of acute instance, whether that's a dental trauma that might have happened during training or competition, or whether that was a dental infection that was unfortunate to just blow up during competition. Um, so you do find at the competitions that would provide a dental clinic sort of aspect. So the likes of the Commonwealth Games or the Olympic Games, where they have a dental practice set up in the athletes' village, you do find them facilities being quite busy. Um, Fortunately, I've spent most of my time on the field of play, so I'm maybe not under the same stress as the dentists that are, and the dental teams that are providing the support in the polyclinics. But it is a service that is used a lot during these competitions. Um, Again, when it comes to field of play support, there's probably less of a need for a dentist. It's really looking at them competitions and them sports where there's a high risk of oral facial trauma. So the types of sports that will include would be the likes of field hockey, boxing, water polo, Olympic handball, things like that, where there is that risk, basketball, where there's that risk of um, an arm or a leg or the ball. In field hockey, it's the stick or the ball can cause quite a bit of damage if that does come in contact with the oral facial region. That's the sort of sports that having a dentist field of play is of benefit.
Brilliant, great. And like, how do you like? Do you use any digital tools or kind of, because the format of this podcast is on digital dentistry? So when you are in that sports dentistry mode, what kind of digital tools and kind of equipments or kind of softwares that you use, or is it more in person in the field with the
Well,
athletes
with them
there? What's
events, it's more in person. Just but with the support that we provide athletes in clinic digitally, it has advanced a lot. Um, so one of my roles would be to provide mouthguards for athletes, um, and a lot of the time that can be done not in the clinic but out in their training ground. So um, if we look back to when I first started doing that, maybe 2010, it would have been getting quite a lot of alginate set up. So what I had quite a lot of packs and algin wee bowls for mixing algin, so I could go out and do 30 to 50 players in one visit. Now what I find is I bring out my three shape scanner. So that's
nice?
completely changed as well. So if I just even providing a simple custom fitted mouthguard, and instead of in that sort of group setting, instead of having it being multiple alginate impressions, what I find now, I'm out with the scanner and I'm scanning the upper arch, and then we always have the scanner as a reference. And where before I would probably have had to repeat that alternate impression every year for some players, it's only really now I need to repeat the scan if there has been any change to dentition with my adult athletes. So that's a big difference that I have found from digital dentistry. Then other aspects of digital dentistry would have been when it comes to the performance mouthguard, we look at doing surface EMGs, and running surface EMGs tracing on the athlete's muscles of mastication. So that would all be very much digital dentistry as well. And so they're the digital dentistry parts that I would do quite regularly. But I have found a big shift in athletes now. They're quite they're quite motivated by aesthetic dentistry, and especially athletes that are quite successful and might be in the media a lot more, or this, especially with social media as well. Athletes do a lot of social media to try to build up their following, and they're seeing themselves a lot. So there seems to be a larger demand, particularly from whenever I first started sports dentistry, from athletes to making sure that they have an aesthetically pleasing smile. So with the likes of clear aligner therapy is a big thing that we would do with a lot of athletes, and also the likes of smile design and composite bonding and porcelain veneers. But the way that that's changed from the traditional way of silicone impressions and bite wedges and things like that to the digital age now, where we're doing a lot of scanning and 3D smile design with Exocad and mock-up smiles that way. There's been a big shift digitally. I've seen that as well.
That's brilliant. And do athletes like? Do you tell them that okay, you can go with the clear aligner therapy, or are they aware that these sort of treatments do exist? Because that's more like a cosmetic treatment that they want to go with. And I know a couple of athletes. So one of my co-founder, he has a clinic in Finglas called Love to Smile, and again, we've seen some of the athletes, some of the Olympians from Finglas side. I think it was Kelly, and I think she went there as a treatment as well. So I think there's a lot of appetite for clear aligner to look good because they are in front of the camera. But are they aware that, or do you have to guide them and create awareness that, guys, this is something that you can go with as well as part of the cosmetic treatment?
Yeah, it depends. It depends. Some people are quite aware, particularly with some of the brands being quite strong with the likes of Invisalign and things like that. Particularly with Invisalign doing sponsorship of the American football with the NFL in the last year or two. There's maybe a little bit more awareness of that. I do find athletes think clear aligner therapy is Invisalign, so they don't know the difference between the brands. But you have other athletes that maybe they want a better smile, but they don't want to do braces, and that's where the likes of Kelly, because I would work with a lot of boxers as well. The difficulty with athletes that need to wear a mouth guard doing orthodontics and clear aligner therapy is the need to regularly change that mouth guard, and that's a big consideration during their treatment as well. It's a little bit easier when you're working with the likes of maybe a professional boxer that's only boxing 3-4 times a year compared to one of the intercounty players that are going to be out every weekend and they need to wear a mouth guard, or an amateur boxer who's going to be constantly in competitions and sparring a little bit more regularly than a professional. That big consideration is the mouth guard and how that mouth guard needs to be adjusted or repeatedly replaced throughout the clear aligner therapy treatment.
Got it. Got it. So, how do you manage that? Someone who is on the road all the time on the county kind of game side of things. So, how do you manage that, like that expectation versus a boxing example that you were saying? So, like, do you travel with them or do they send digital files and
Oh
you
no,
ship them the new
we
mouth
try to
guards?
organise. Yeah, so try to organise every 6 to 8 weeks to replace the mouth guard. So when we were doing the mouth guard, you would use when the likes of if you have planning software for clear aligner therapy, you'd have a look to see how the teeth are moving, and you'd try to block that space out within the mouth guard, to allow that mouth guard to fit well, um, as the teeth start to move. And I tend to find that it's usually a 6 to 8 week period you can get, particularly at the initial stages of clear aligner therapy when there's going to be a lot more movement, and a lot bigger changes to the alignment of the teeth, that you'll need to replace that mouth guard. So it's just scheduling that in as well. With pro boxers is a little bit different. They'll go into camp and then they'll fight. So you try to get them a mouth guard as they go into camp, and then at the end of camp in the lead up the week or two before the actual fight, we'll replace that mouth guard to one that fits a little bit better for the fight itself. Um, so it's a lot of timing. It's a little bit easier with local athletes to be able to do that because they're there. If you're working with athletes that are training camps or abroad or they're away and it's not that easy for them to put in, it's a little bit of planning needs to go into place for that.
And is there any kind of remote monitoring that you do for the international players, the players who are traveling internationally, or do you have to wait them to come back to, and see you in person in the clinic, or do you collaborate, or is there a remote monitoring, or let's say other kind of partner clinics that they can go to maybe send you a new scan if there's a problem over there, or do you have to wait for
Yeah,
them to come
so
back?
there is a small network of sports dentists that I would use if we were struggling to get them into the clinic here to scan or get access to them. We have used remote monitoring, the likes of dental monitoring before with athletes, just to keep on top of their treatment and the fact that we can't see them maybe as regularly as our normal patients, and that helps as well. Um, Particularly when they first get into the liners, I do find once they get used to clear liner therapy and they get into the habit of wearing the liners, it's less of an issue to make sure from a monitoring perspective. Um, but we have used them in the past and they have been quite useful.
Great. And like, what are your general views on the digital dentistry? I know you mentioned the 3-chip scanner that you carry with you a lot of times. So, in general, what are your views and what are the trends that you are seeing where you are always on top of? You're reading about them. That you want to experiment those things. So, in general, digital dentistry, and what specific trends you are really excited about that are coming up, or you want to trial them as well.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's really interesting is the fact that you can do in-house smile mock-ups really, really good these days. So you can, between your scanning, so if a patient's coming in and they're looking to see potentially how their new smile would look, you're not only able to do something with the photos and adjust the photos, but to be able to use the scanner, quickly put it out into design software, and then 3D print a model in the clinic and be able then to actually do a trial smile very quickly in the clinic. And I think that's going to be a massive game changer when it comes to providing that sort of communication to patients before they start the treatment and when they come in for that initial consultation, and to help them understand limitations and also the potential to the treatment options that are available to them. It's been one that's really interested me recently, is using the likes of Axocad to smile design, and then the likes of an in-house 3D printer to be able to provide that support to patients and that communication too. It's really, I think that's a lot of practices are going to sort of develop that way. You do find the trend in Ireland seems to be a little bit behind how things are done in the UK, and the UK are a little bit behind how things are done in the US, and that seems to be where a lot of practices are going in other areas. And I think that's only something that's going to build here and get a little bit more popular with practices here in Ireland as well.
And how do you stay on top of the trends that are happening? Is it like because of your travel internationally as well, and the trade shows? Is that the source of all that inspiration and what things you can try and put your hands on, or is it more reading and kind of own research on a desktop that you try to find out, or is it just somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of
Yeah.
everything. There's so much online now. You can get to see so much online, but you can only actually, I find you can only actually learn so much online, see what things are like. Going to the likes of the the trade shows, or some going to the live courses and things really get you hands on and lets you see how things are a lot better as well, and helps you understand the possibilities of new technologies and new ways of thinking. So it is a little bit of both. It's really, there's that much content and there's that much information now out online. It's really trying to work your way through it um, and seeing what would work and what fits. And I think being able then to use the likes of the trade shows or in person courses as well really help get a full understanding of what's right for you, and what's right for your practice and the patients that you're supporting.
Okay, brilliant. Uh, Dr. John, when I was going through your LinkedIn profile and the CV, I also found that you were the Chief Dental Officer at VHI Healthcare as well.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious what the role of a chief dental officer at an insurance company, such a big insurance company such as VHI. What was a typical role like, and what got you to that kind of role, as in when you started with sports dentistry, like what made you join VHI as the chief dental officer in an insurance company?
Yeah, so it was actually quite an interesting role, and it developed and changed over time as well. So um, it was a nice role in the fact that it was a non-clinical role. So it gave me a nice break to the week where I had my clinical time, but I also then had a couple of days which was non-clinical as well, which was nice to get that balance. So when I first joined VHI, they were setting up their dental plan, and this is back in 2013. And one of the big drivers that we wanted to do was provide direct pay options for members. So where they would come into the dentist and we'd be able to provide direct pay to the dentist directly without the member having to pay and claim them back, which is probably the norm for a lot of ways. Health insurance and dental insurance members are doing it in Ireland. So we wanted to make that process as easy as possible. So what we really needed to do was design a process that works for the practice as well. So it works for dentists to be able to, because really what the dentist is doing is taking away the admin from that patient and providing the admin to us instead directly. So I was really trying to develop a
Yeah.
process that would not be too tax heavy on the practice and use up too many of the practice resources, and then also develop a process that give an ideal patient journey for somebody on dental insurance so they're able to tap straight into their benefits directly. So that's initially what we were set on doing, was setting up a dental policy that met the needs of Irish people, and then also being able to provide a member journey where they could use that dental policy and go to their local dentist and have an ideal patient journey and patient experience. So we were quite successful at doing that. And then as that role sort of developed, and we had set up quite a good network to provide our members lots of direct access to direct pay providers, there was a little bit less to do. And so the roles slightly changed. And then it was really providing supports to the claims team from a clinical point of view to make sure that they were being able to assess claims correctly to the terms and conditions of the policy, that they understand the terminology. So there's a little bit of training on that behalf. There's also the corporate clients, which so a lot of the American corporates in Ireland would provide medical and dental insurance to their employees, as that's kind of a trend for American companies to do. So it was working with our corporate partners as well to be able to provide good oral health sort of support for their employees. So it would involve going out to the corporates to provide oral health talks and oral health awareness events, and also working with designing policies that would meet the needs of their employees as well. So it was an interesting role, and I spent almost a decade doing it, so it gave me great experience looking at a different aspect of dentistry.
That's really good. And this, have you seen a kind of an upward trend towards people buying dental insurance? I know that corporate, because your company is paying for dental in addition to the medical side, I think they usually take it. But do you see private, like normal people, opting in for dental insurance? And is that an upward trend towards buying dental? Because I think it's different for different countries. US is totally different. Ireland is very
Yeah.
different in terms of that.
Yeah, there's a slower trend in Ireland, and I think anybody that has it and uses it understands the benefits of having it, particularly due to the unique sort of dental atmosphere that's in Ireland compared to the UK, where they have the NHS dentistry rule, which provides a lot more support than any of the sort of government funded schemes here in Ireland. And also, you would have, if we compare again to the UK, then a lot of practices would have plans and memberships. It's more common in the UK, so it's almost like the equivalent of a dental insurance, where it's actually something they're paying something similar, but with the practice, and they're getting sort of benefits for paying that. So I do think when I look at practice plans, dental insurance actually provides probably better value for the patients, for what they're able to get covered for. So there is a slower. I think it is growing. It's growing slowly. Well, I don't think it will ever be at the position where the US, where there's quite a high percentage of people will have insurance. I don't think we'll ever be as heavy percentage wise from people that have insurance and don't have insurance. But there is a slow build. I wouldn't be surprised if we're up to like maybe 10 to 20% of people that will have dental insurance over time, particularly if the policies stay to something similar to where they are now, because they do provide quite good cover if people need treatment.
Yeah, and I think with more insurance providers coming in, if that is the case, that would reduce the price of the insurance premium that the people are paying as well. So that will allow more people to join, these insurance policies.
Yeah. I think one of the sort of barriers possibly is the PRSI scheme, and how if you get one exam and clean per year on your PRSI, and your dental
Yeah,
policy covers you for two exams and cleans, you may not use all them two exams and cleans. So you may start to, once your oral health's in a pretty good position and you're maybe not getting a lot of regular treatment, you might be thinking that you possibly are overpaying for the dental insurance because you're able to get that benefit of your PRSI. And I think that's probably what's going to slow it down. Where if there was no PRSI benefit at all, I think dental insurance would definitely um, be a lot more popular, because if just by using your preventative aspects on a dental insurance policy, it almost pays for itself. And then as soon as any treatment's needed at all, it's very beneficial.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, Dr. John, I think you are a very busy person. You are the one of the top sports dentists that I know of. You are an educator as well. You travel. You are on top of the trends, attending trade shows and everything. There's a lot of that takes on your day to day life as well. So, what do you do to keep yourself physically and mentally fit? I know that you're very physically fit, so I'm very curious, how do you manage your week and what do you do for both those aspects?
Yeah, not as fit as I'd like to be, but no, I'm still trying to play. So I'm back playing Gaelic football and hurling at a junior level. So we've had a very good year actually with the hurling this year, where we're still in competition. We won the county junior championship, so we're now in the Ulster junior championship this weekend. So it's been really good. It does take up time to go to training and stuff, so it limits what time you have to do other sort of physical activities and stuff. But if it didn't have sport, I usually try to go for a few runs or gym just to try to clear the head, and keep the body in some sort of fitness. Try to keep the fat levels down a little bit, which is harder and harder every year. Every year you get older, it's a lot more harder to do. So yeah, but I'm usually quite actively involved in sport wherever I can. If the body allows me, I'll probably try to play as much as I can. Even took up American football about 5 years ago for a few years. So if I'm able to, if I'm able to compete at all, I'll probably try to still play a little bit of sport. Find it's great, particularly in a team event. It really helps you forget about your work and your stresses once you enter the change room and you start to have a bit of crack with your fellow teammates, and there's a bit of banter that goes around in all teams, and it really takes you away from the stresses of day to day life and allows you just that escape for a few hours to go out and run around and pretend you're a kid again. So I do find that helps a lot.
Oh, that's great. And does this, because you're always surrounded by that ecosystem of high performance athletes, does that rub off when you're there in their vicinity? And does that kind of pushes, like, I'm just very curious because I don't know many people who are in the sports dentistry profession. So just curious, that does those things, who are obviously they are doing it day in and day out because that's their profession, but does that high performance thing rubs off, which pushes you to do more for yourself?
Yeah, it helps. It helps your mindset, and I find that a lot with elite athletes, that um, it's really their mindset that sets them apart. It really is their mindset and how they've been able to dedicate themselves to their goals, that's really allowed them to succeed. I actually had the pleasure of um, doing MC for the local club a couple of weeks ago, and um, we had Kieran McGeehan in and Eugene McGee, who would be the highest capped men's hockey player, and we were able to talk to them about their journeys, and you could see, even though they were doing different sports, you could see the similarities in their mindset, which how they were able to drive themselves on, and um, that's really interesting to see that, and it helps as well then for your own mindset and helping you guide you for get setting yourself goals, and being able to reach them, or try to reach them.
No, that's great. You mentioned goals, so I'll leave you with the last question. um, what's like? I know we are towards the end of 2024. Like, what are you thinking of 2025? It's okay. how are you planning to make 2025 that is different from 2024? What are the new things that, like, it could be travel, it could be professional side of things, or it could be personal side of things? So what's John's plan for 2025?
Um, Plan for next year is really just to keep developing. So one of the things that we're doing in a few weeks is we're launching the UK Sports Dentistry Association. So we're really
Nice.
trying to provide a platform to bring everybody in the dental industry that's involved with sports dentistry together, so they can network and learn from each other. So that'll probably be part of the big 2025 plans. We're launching that um, in 2 weeks' time, on the 15th of November, and then we'll spend next year hopefully trying to build that and grow that, and develop a membership so people have that support when they're working with their local athletes, um, or the dental practice. So that's 2025 will probably be one of the big goals.
Brilliant. Great. So, Dr. John, thanks so much for taking out your time. I know you're busy. You're inside your clinic. You're super busy, and thanks for taking out time for this episode. I know we had been speaking a lot on LinkedIn, and thanks for saying yes first of all, and taking out that time during the middle of the week to do this. I hope that it's, when listeners are looking at it, parts of it are full. They get a lot of insights into your journey and also into sports dentistry specifically as well, which we don't hear about that often. So I was personally very excited before coming to this podcast when I was learning about you and your career as well. So I hope you also enjoyed being part of this episode. And then thanks again for all your time
Yeah,
today.
it was great. Yeah, no, thanks very much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you are, entering into the journey of starting your own clear aligner services, or setting up a manufacturing unit, or setting up a chain of clinics offering clear aligners, you need a really good quality software, which should have the case management side of things, which should have a remote monitoring side of things, and also should be white labeled. Smile Genius Dental provides you all in one software to do everything that you will need on those key areas. We provide you with the doctor's portal, which is the dentist facing portal where they can submit the cases and remote monitor the patient's progress. We provide the labs with the lab case management side of things, where they can manage the incoming requests from the doctors, but also have visibility of the operation side from the patient side as well. And then we have provided you with the patient monitoring app, because it's all about compliance and engagement at the end. So Smile Genius Dental is the all-in-one platform which is white labeled for your brand, to provide you with your consumers with that end-to-end experience, to provide more efficiency and productivity to your business without needing you to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and years of development time to build the software yourself. So call in to our team or book an appointment with us, and we'll be happy to walk you through what Smile Genius is all about. But until next time, stay tuned for the next really good episode of the Digital Dentistry Deep Dive podcast.